Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Mac and Talk for Tuesday, December 21st, 2021. I'm your host, Chanelle Allen. And despite what I may think, the year is progressing, and I wanted to book an appointment for January 6th of 2021. Well, that's not going to work too well. Guess I should have used my Mac calendar or a time machine. But anyway, I am so glad to have you here, whether you're listening now or later on via the podcast recording. Mac and Talk is an open Q&A conference call for anyone with Mac questions. Whether you're just getting started out with VoiceOver and need some help, or you've been using your Mac for a while and are having a question about an app, or can you do something with an app, or maybe you're trying to decide if the Mac is the best device to begin with. For whatever reason, thank you so much for joining us. Since this is being recorded, we just ask that everyone stay muted at all times unless asking a question or making a comment. I'll go over the procedure for how we do that in just a minute, but just know we do not use the raised hand feature. All right, the year is indeed drawing to a close, and at iBUG, I will just go over the things that we have coming up. Um, to keep up with all of our announcements and just things that we offer, I highly encourage you to visit our website and social media. On our website, ibugtoday.org, you can look at the upcoming events link, and that will show you all the events for the current month, and January's will be posted soon. You can also register for a free account on our site, which gives you our emails. So whenever we have an event coming up, you'll receive an email about that. You may also listen to recordings of our previous workshops. So definitely check out our website. On social media, we have a Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/slash iBug today. And that's a great place for people. Our announcements are posted there, and people like to continue the conversations that we start in these meetings with additional questions or information. Another place for that information, particularly for Mac users and for your questions, is the Mac and Talk discussion list. And that info you'll find on our website, ibugtoday.org, in the Mac and Talk link. But continuing on with social media, we are on Twitter and Instagram at iBugToday. And Twitter's great because our Twitter master, Herbie Allen, posts lots of relevant Mac info in addition to all the Apple news, rumors, deals, and all that good stuff. So definitely follow us on Twitter or at least view our website on Twitter. And we have videos on YouTube. If you like to use YouTube, we have our podcasts from all of our previous training workshops, in addition to videos from the last Mac course. And that's the iBug Today channel. Okay, as far as our events for this week, we have iBug Night at the Virtual Movies. Normally that is Friday, but we're going to be celebrating Christmas Eve as we watch A Christmas Story. I believe that's the title of the movie, beginning at 7:30 with the pre-movie social, followed by the movie at 8 and a discussion afterwards. And we will also have a movie on New Year's Eve, I believe, the following Thursday. Um, and then our regular events resume in January on Monday, January 3rd with iBug Buzz, which is a Q&A conference call for anyone with iPhone and iOS and accessory questions. And instead of at 7:30, that will now be offered at 7 p.m. There's also changes in our programming that we're offering on Clubhouse in terms of different dates and times. Stay tuned for that. And I think that's the gist of our announcements. So if you want to participate tonight, begin by saying your name and waiting to be acknowledged by either myself, Sandhya, or Brad, and then ask your question or make your comment. And when you're done, please go back on mute. We try not to interrupt one another. We try to find, appropriate pauses in the conversation and go from there. To unmute, if you're on your Mac, you'll use Command Shift A. If you're on your iPhone, it's in the lower left-hand corner. On a telephone, it's *6. On the iPad, it's somewhere up in the top middle. And I think that's about it. So, Sonia, if you want to let anyone know of upcoming changes, that's fine. I'm sure I probably missed things. Otherwise, we'll go through introductions. So just tell us your name, where you are calling from, and if this is your first time joining us for Mac and Talk. I am Chanelle Allen. I currently live in Houston, and I've been facilitating this for about a couple years, I think. So, anyway, go ahead.
This is Brad. I'm in Dallas.
Hello, Brad.
Priscilla from Arlington.
Priscilla, hello.
How are you, dear?
Great. Nice to have you.
I keep forgetting what time.
Oh, that's okay.
Susan from Houston.
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
This is Sonia in Houston.
Hi, Sonia.
Judy in Connecticut.
Hello, Judy.
David Mandel in Berkeley, California.
Welcome, David.
This is Helene.
Oh, welcome, Helene.
Yes, I'm new to this Mac Talk because I need to understand more about the Mac before I purchase one.
Great. Well, I'm so glad to have you. And how did you hear about it? I think you've been to
Well,
a few of our other meetings.
I go to the other ones, the other iBUG today, and I keep hearing about Mac Talk, and I asked my mentor, Jody, and she said, well, maybe you want to understand more, and then you can make a decision.
Definitely. Well, we're so glad to have you. Thanks for being here.
I'm the newest of the newbies here.
We love newbies. Awesome.
This is Tim from Seattle. I'm new to this forum too.
Great. Welcome, Tim. I think we've been corresponding via email.
Yes, we have.
Great. And how did you hear about Mac and Talk?
It was during just a tech talk that the other day. That's how I heard about it.
All right. Great. Awesome. Glad to have you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? All right, if not, we will get started with questions, but please stay tuned as if there's time permitting later on, I'll talk briefly about the Voice Stream Reader app and how you can quickly access links and an email if there's even time for that. But for now, let's go to questions. Who would like to ask our first question?
This is David.
Yes, David.
Yeah. As I think I've told you before, I'm trying to get my new Mac. Seems to be some shipping issues, supply chain and stuff, but that's fine. And I want to know, I know, Brad, you have one of the new MacBook Pros, and it was very interesting to hear your comments when you first got it. And I'm just wondering, as far as specs, a 16 gig, would you suggest that? As for RAM, would you suggest going up? Or when would you suggest going up to 32? Have you heard also, has anyone said anything about, how VoiceOver works with the Pro chip versus the One Max chip and that kind of thing?
All right.
This is Brad.
Go ahead, Brad.
I've had my new MacBook Pro with the M1 Pro processor now for a little over a month. I'm really pleased with it. It's a nice machine. It's certainly, the other one was quite adequate. I just went ahead and got the new one because I wanted the silicone, Apple silicone, and Apple gave me a good deal on trading in the other one. But As I've gone on record before, I'm particularly in love with the new keyboard. It's just the feel of it. And I love having F keys back again, although the touch bar really wasn't all that big a deal, but it sure is nice to have F keys back again. And inverted T arrow keys and a physical escape key, though I got very used to using the hold down the FN key and hit the tab key worked as a physical escape key. And I find myself still doing that all the time. As far as, let's see, VoiceOver, I still have another Mac that is a Intel based Mac. It's a Mac Mini. I don't find any different with VoiceOver, with the exception for one strange little thing. When I use the what do we call it? The voice adjustments, where you hold down VO Command Shift and use your up and down or left and right arrow to adjust your voice, some of the voice attributes, your speech rate, your change the voice, change the intonation, things like that. It doesn't always, when I have it set to, I like the Alex voice. I've just always liked Alex. When I have it set to Alex, it sometimes doesn't say everything as I move up and down or left and right through the different categories. But if I change my voice to automatically, what's it called? Automatically, depending upon language, switch language automatically. It works perfectly when I change my voice to that. On my other Mac, it doesn't seem to matter if it's on Alex or whatever. I didn't have any problem. So that's the only thing I can find that's any different on the Silicon Mac. They both are running the same version of Mac OS. So, and that's the only thing I've noticed that's weird about it. As far as you asked about RAM, I believe the base level now on these things is 16 gigabyte. I don't think you can get less. As far as 32 or when to go with 32, first of all, these things are not upgradable. If you buy it with 16 gigabytes of RAM, that's what you've got as long as you own the machine. So if you can possibly afford to go with 32 gigs of RAM and you think that you might have a need for that, if you can afford it, I'd go ahead and get it. If you can afford more storage, go ahead and get it, because these things are not upgradable. Whatever RAM you get when you buy it is what you got. Whatever size SSD storage you get when you buy it, that's what you've got. I mean, you can always use an external SSD if you want, but whatever internal you get is what you've got. Unless you're going to do, edit, audio or video production editing, 16 gigabytes should do you just fine. But again, if you think that's something you might want to get into, you might go ahead and get whatever you can get. If you can afford it, I'd get it. Other than that, I've just been pretty happy with it. It seems a good machine. Obviously, I'm low vision. I see the screen a little bit, but I certainly don't see well enough to can tell any improvement over the previous Mac's screen. There's supposed to be some improvements over it, but they're lost on me. I do invert colors so that I have, when I got a Finder window open or something, email or something, I'm looking at a black background with white text, but I can't read the text. I don't magnify the screen. I depend completely on the screen reader. Every now and then I might make it really big to take a look at something, but that's rare. When I was learning the Mac years ago, it was nice to have some vision because I was trying to figure things out. Working a Mac with the screen reader is a little different than the Windows environment with the screen reader. And when I was still trying to get the hang of some things on it, I might need to take a look at something to figure out the behavior, what was going on. But I've been using it now for going on 9 years, and I'm pretty familiar with the idiosyncrasies of the Mac's behavior. So I don't know, whatever
So
else I
ju-
could add.
just to follow up, that sounds really good, Brad. I'm very impressed, and I'm really encouraged. Do you think for basic audio editing, like for podcast or just basic music production without a lot of libraries and samples, 16 gig then would work okay for me?
This is Brad. From what I understand, it seems to. I listened to the
Okay.
Apple Insider podcast, and there's a guy on there, Stephen Robles. He bought the very first series of M1 Macs. He bought the M1 MacBook Pro, which at the time, it was a lower end M1 processor from what they're offering now. And I believe all he went with was 16 gigabytes of RAM, and he was producing the podcast on it. So it seemed to do fine for what he said. He produces several podcasts, so he was doing fine with that. He did, because he couldn't resist. This is what he does. He writes about these things. So he went ahead and traded in his original M1 Mac Pro for the newer one. And he said the speed was noticeably different when it came to doing whatever it is that he does to produce a podcast. Um, so, I would, if that's what you're thinking about doing, I certainly think that the money you put into one of these is, it's a good investment. Again, I don't know if 16 gigabytes versus 32. Again, if you've got the money, I'd always get more RAM and more hard drive space. You're like a hermit crab. If you've got it, you'll use it.
Thanks.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Yep, it's important to, these Macs are great investments, and it's important to choose what's going to be right for you not only now, but a few years down the road, because believe it or not, they do last. So, anyway, who would like to ask our next question?
This is Helene.
Yes, Helene.
I, have a very basic question. I purchased a Mac laptop a few years ago, and I got it in the mail, and it was impossible for me to open it and put my what they wanted me to do wasn't with voiceover. When you first opened it, you had to do something that involved sight. And and I'm wondering, is it still like that? Do I even want one? All the commands and knowing the keyboard was new to me, so I was putting dots on things, and in a week I returned it. And I think that I've been so intimidated by, you don't need it, and you don't need such a device, and your iPad Pro is just fine. And whenever you get a new phone, it's anxiety. And so I guess my question is it still the same that when you open it to take it out of the box, you have to do something that involves sight to get, you couldn't get the voiceover until you got into the machine?
All right,
Brad.
who would go ahead, Brad?
Every Mac I've ever had, if you turn it on and don't touch it, when it's brand new, you turn it on for the very first time and don't touch it. If you don't do anything after maybe a minute, 90 seconds, maybe at the most, voiceover will just start talking. But if you turn it on and start doing things to the keyboard, it will assume you don't need voiceover. And voiceover will not automatically start. At any time, whether it's when it's brand new and it hasn't started talking yet, or you've had it a while, you can always do a keyboard command, which is Command F5. Command is the key located immediately next to the space bar on either side of the space bar. It's where the Alt key would be on a Windows computer. And F5 is F5. Go to your F key row. The first one is the escape key, then count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and press that. That will toggle voiceover on or off. But if you don't do anything, voiceover will just start talking. Now, it will guide you through some things you need to do. And I certainly understand anything that's new is intimidating, and you don't know what to do. You don't know where to start. And I would encourage that if you've got another computer or your iPhone or something you're familiar with, that you can go to applevis.org, and they have all kinds of tutorials, and you can certainly access them from any kind of computer. You don't have to, it's just a website, and they've got all kinds of tutorials that you can either read or obviously, I mean, read with your screen reader, or they have recorded podcasts that you can access from their from their website, or even through a podcast application. But of course, you're looking through the history of, you can search for them, but I think the website would be the way to go. And there's all kinds of introductory materials there. There's lists of keyboard commands. You can, if you know how to use even a Windows computer, you can do a Google search for Mac keyboard commands, and you can, the Mac, that'll teach you enough so that you can then use the Mac. The VoiceOver User's Guide is available on the Mac, but it's actually a web-based user's guide, which you could probably do a Google search for VoiceOver User's Guide on your Windows computer or on your iPhone, and you could find it. But it's out there, it's on the web. But in answer to your first question, now you turn on a Mac, and VoiceOver will start talking automatically if you just let it sit there.
Wow.
Yes. Great.
Susan,
Okay, that's
Susan.
Just a sec.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
So, you were saying something, Helene?
I'm just so surprised at my level of ignorance about this, but I'd love to know what the Mac, why would I want to have a Mac versus just having my iPad Pro?
Yeah,
Okay.
Susan,
Go ahead, Susan.
yeah, I was just wanting to make a comment about what was talked about just a second ago. For me, when I buy any Apple products, when I get my Mac, my iPad or iPhone, for me, the easiest way to go is to make an appointment. Always make a Genius appointment at an Apple store, and they'll take care of everything for you. To me, that's the easiest way to go, instead of doing all the other things that was mentioned, because that was like just making me nervous. Just thinking about that, I would be like, no, I can't do that. So anyway, that's just something I would suggest, is just take it to the nearest Apple store, but first make a Genius appointment, because if you just walk in, no telling how long you're going to be waiting. So anyway, that's just a suggestion. Thank you very much.
All right. So Helene, you're trying to figure out then why you would want a Mac, question of side of how to get it set up. Why? Let me, I guess, just ask you a question. Is there something that you're not able to do on your phone or your iPad that you wish you had a computer to do?
This is Helene.
Yes, Helene.
I find that the only times where it becomes evident that if I had a computer, when things go wrong, they always say, do you have a computer in the house? And then they would like to help me with Apple. The Apple people will try to help me, but then you need a computer to do some things that they want done that aren't on an iPad. And I usually just say, no, I don't have that.
This is Sandhya.
Go ahead, Sandhya.
So to respond to Helene's earlier question, just such a great question, and that's exactly what the purpose of this call is, as far as whether to get a Mac or not. And that is a conundrum, because these iPhones are computers already. They're very tiny computers, but they are, and they can do a lot. But like how Chanelle was asking, trying to determine, it's all about what you're going to do and how you want to do it and when you want to do it, so that kind of, for the longest time, I did everything on my iPhone, and then I ventured and got a Mac, and so it's I feel like you have more. I mean, you could, you can use a Bluetooth keyboard with your iPhone or an iPad, and you get a very quick experience, but it's a lot easier. You have more control. I'm not articulating this properly, but like if you're writing a note, or you're writing an email, or reading your email, you just have I feel like you have more control as far as editing documents, that kind of thing. If you do a lot of writing, even if you don't do a lot of writing, there's like a better interface with, what you're doing, and it's just very more responsive, and there's not as many clicks and taps. I mean, it's a lot more streamlined on the computer. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you. That's definitely true. Yeah, Helene. So,
This is Marion.
yes, Marion, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. And Helene, I was in your position, although I had a Windows PC, but decided to buy a MacBook laptop computer. And I took Chanelle's absolutely amazing in-depth class on how to use VoiceOver on a Mac. And I had been warned a few years earlier, and had kind of forgotten when I'd thought about getting a MacBook, that using VoiceOver on the phone or an iPad is very different from using VoiceOver on the MacBook or Mac computer. And some people might, disagree with me. This is just my opinion and my challenges I had in learning how to use VoiceOver on my laptop. And, there's not a touch screen. So with the phone or your iPad, you're moving your finger around the entire screen, and it's telling you what's under your finger. And then you just tap on what you want to do. And on the laptop or the Mac desktop computer, you don't have that touch screen. So you have to know buttons on the keyboard to push to move around through different sections of the screen. And I still get lost, in grids and tables and lists and different sections of the screen that's up at any given time. And so my advice is, if you don't really need it for more than what you can do with your iPad already, because I use a Bluetooth keyboard with my phone, and I'm not using my laptop very much. And I think when you use it a lot and you get used to the keystrokes and the special command buttons and everything, you can move around a lot faster in documents and do more. But it's a steep learning curve, I thought. And I'll be quiet.
Oh, thanks for that perspective. It's important to hear from everyone. So, I'm sorry, Helene, you were saying something?
Yes, yes. Thank you, because that both of those, the information is wonderful. And because I live in Woodstock, New York for most of the year, and then I'm here during the winter in Arizona, there is a Scottsdale Quarter place to go to. But because of the pandemic, it's really more challenging that going out. It just doesn't feel that with what's going on in the world, that I want to go play in the store and figure that out. But in learning, I was curious if the course that you offered, Chantel, is that something that's on YouTube that I can just take and listen again?
Yes. So the previous lessons are there. We do offer the course at different times throughout the year, but that's, more like it's during a, I don't know, 12-week time frame, and that's on Zoom, and people kind of have to be there every night. But if you listen to the course on YouTube, it's at your own pace, and you can go back as whatever you need to. So yeah, it's a great option.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone.
Along with the resources Brad mentioned. And thank you so much for your question. Okay, who is next?
This is Tim, and I just wanted to kind of comment still on the last
Sure.
topic. Just I bought a new MacBook Pro in August, and I did kind of what was suggested as I made an appointment first before I even bought it, and had a friend take me there. And when I made the appointment, I said, I want someone to walk me through whatever, the blind or visually impaired settings that you have are. And they did. They set me up in the store, which was very helpful, right? And gave me a decent tutorial of that. And then I didn't buy it that time. I came back later and got it. And then once I got it, I also they gave me some free complimentary training time where someone from Apple actually was able to remote into my laptop because I let them, gave them permissions and to do that for the session, and they were able to change some settings that I hadn't been able to find yet or locate to make it more user friendly. So that was really helpful too. But I do want to say too, just acknowledge it is stressful to change things. Not I just think back to when I entered the workforce, right? When I was a young kid, IBM Selectric 3 typewriters were the big deal, right? So, for those of us who've had technology kind of come of age, later in our, as we've gotten older, it is challenging, right? It's not that easy. And when you get used to something, whether it's your phone or computer, laptop, and then you make a change or an upgrade, that could be wonderful and good, but also the transition process can be really stressful. And anybody can get to help you with that. That's help is always a good thing.
Yes.
Thanks for your feedback on that. Yep, it sounds like the resources are out there. I'm the more adventurous type myself, but when it comes to technology, but if it's going out and exploring a new environment, so we all have our areas, but where we need help or feel more or less comfortable. But anyway, who would like to ask the next question? Oops. Oh, I raised my own hand. Oopsies. Okay, I was looking at something else. All right. Well, if there are no questions at the moment, all right, I will just take a moment to tell everyone about
Hey,
voice.
Chanelle.
Yes.
I'm sorry, this is Marion. I was trying to find my mute button,
Oh,
and
no problem.
I do have a
Oh,
question.
wonderful, wonderful.
Well, and I'm not sure even how to ask it exactly. I think that there's an option to be able to use the cursor with voiceover, but I don't know how that works. And what I'm getting at is when my sight has slowly gotten worse. So first I increased font sizes and everything, and then I started using NVDA on the with Windows on the PC, and I used my mouse, and so it would read what was under the cursor, the pointer. So it was almost like the touch screen, which reads what's under your finger. And I just wondered if there is that capability with voiceover, and if that makes it more or less complicated or difficult to use the computer? I know when you get used to the keystrokes, it's so much faster and better. But if I used a mouse and moved the cursor around with the mouse, will VoiceOver tell me what's under the cursor? And can I click on it?
Okay, that's an excellent question. And I think, not to pick on him, but I think Brad had an answer or may have an answer. Or am I thinking of the wrong thing, Brad?
This is Brad. There is something in there. I have to go look and see where it is because I don't use it, but I know just like you mentioned, Marion, NVDA has a way that it can echo whatever your mouse is over. Both the screen magnification program, Zoom Text, and Magic on the Windows side have had that same thing for a long time. For a while, there was a Zoom Text version that ran on the Mac, and it had that. It's called Mouse Echo, and I believe it is in VoiceOver. And I have to look for it and see where it is real quick, and then I can get back to you. But I know I've seen it, and I've just never needed to use it. But if you give me a
Well, then
second,
I wondered
I'll find it.
if you can use the buttons on the mouse to click and select and drag,
Well,
in
this is
addition to just
this is
echo.
Brad.
Yeah, Brad.
Um, the mouse buttons work like a regular mouse. That doesn't have anything to do with VoiceOver. Um, and in Apple, they generally a regular Apple mouse that they sell, the Magic Mouse, only has one button on it. There is a way to do a secondary click. I have used a Logitech mouse, and it does work with the left button and the right button, but
Hmm.
that shouldn't be affected by VoiceOver at all. As a
Oh,
matter of
okay.
fact, if you have a laptop, a MacBook with a trackpad,
Hmm.
it's the same thing. You can use the trackpad. To me, the question was mouse echo. Will the mouse say what it's moving over? And I believe it does have that either in accessibility or in VoiceOver. There's a way to echo what the mouse does when it's moved, or I believe it's in navigation. I got to go look for it.
I think you're
But
right.
as far as clicking the mouse and all those things, just regular VoiceOver should just say those anyway.
What do you mean? Well, okay, so when this is Mary, so when the focus, when you move it using the VoiceOver keys, does that also move the cursor arrow on the screen? Since I can't see the screen, I
Now, hang
don't
on.
know.
This is Brad. We're talking about two different things here.
Yeah.
First, I thought you were talking about moving the mouse and having VoiceOver say what the mouse arrow is moving over. That's called mouse echo. The other
Uh-huh.
thing would be moving the mouse arrow with keyboard commands. And that's a separate thing. And I'd have to
No.
look at that.
Yeah, no,
That-
I meant with the mouse. I was just trying to confirm that um, uh, the mouse and the focus are going to be on the same thing. So when I click on something, it's going to click on whatever the mouse echo told me is under the pointer, under the cursor,
This
or
is
under the.
Brad. It should do just that. If you
Okay.
use the mouse and you click on something, it should move. And there's a setting in VoiceOver so that VoiceOver focus follows keyboard focus. And if you click on something, that's the same thing as putting your keyboard focus on it. Not to be confused with tracking VoiceOver to the mouse location or tracking the mouse location to VoiceOver location. Now that's different. That's all done with keyboard. But if you're actually putting your hand on the mouse and moving it, that's a different
Mhm.
deal. And
Okay. Yeah.
if you are moving and VoiceOver is telling you what the mouse is moving over, and you get to an item on the screen and you click on it, VoiceOver will report to you that that item has been selected. So yes, there should be no
Okay.
problem with that.
Thank you.
Susan?
There's a lot to learn. Yes, go ahead, Susan.
Yes. Yeah, this is an interesting question because I've asked about the mouse, I guess, I don't know, a couple of times or something in the past few years. I've always liked the mouse when I used to use the PC. But I remember I've been told that the mouse really doesn't work good on the Apple devices, but I don't know, but it sounds like it would do just fine. So I guess I'm asking what some of y'all think about, does it work fine with any of you? Have y'all ever tried it? Would y'all recommend it or not recommend it? Also, if anyone has or does use a mouse on a Mac top, whatever. What would be a good brand for, mouse to get? Which one would be the best? Anyway, those are a few different questions I'm asking. So anyway, thank you.
All right.
This is Brad.
Yeah, Brad.
I can assure you, Susan, a mouse on a Mac works just the same as a mouse works on any other computer. There's no problem with it using a mouse just because it's a Mac. There are a number of different choices. Apple sells a Bluetooth Magic Mouse. My wife uses one. She's sighted. She likes it. I've never liked it. It just doesn't feel right in my hand. I've always preferred a Logitech mouse. They make lots of different kinds of mice. I don't, I'm sure they still sell wired ones but most of the ones they sell come with a little dongle device that will plug into a USB port on the mouse. And then you put some batteries in the mouse and turn it on and it just works. They also sell Bluetooth mice that you just pair like any other Bluetooth device. So, and there's probably lots of other companies out there that make them too. So, but if you don't like the one that Apple sells, which it's expensive, like everything Apple, but it's also pretty good. So I like the Logitech mice.
Susan?
Yes, Susan.
Yeah. One thing I failed to ask is, well, I use my iPad more than anything else, and then second place is the iPhone. But I do have a Magic keyboard, works with Bluetooth, but I'm still not a big keyboard fan, but I use my hands more. So like I have a lot of notes and to get it to read some notes, say like financial information, may have my checking account and savings and credit cards, all that information. And I don't want the voiceover to go blah, 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 real fast. I'm like, slow down. So I would have to use the speed, what is it called? To make it go slow, in other words, or go character by character or word by word. And I don't really like that. So using a mouse, would that give me the control to read like checking account number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and go down, savings account number is blah, blah, blah. Like that, whenever I move my hand, just like I used to do on the PC.
I don't think the rate, so I don't think it would slow down your voiceover rate. You'd have to slow that down if, just before you started reading. I don't really have any experience using a mouse. I can't comment, unfortunately, but
This is Brad.
yeah, Brad.
Yeah, I don't think a mouse has got anything to do with any of this. And I don't think it's any different on a Mac than it would have been on Windows. Unless you've got your using a software on Windows that allows it to echo whatever the mouse is over. And as you move the mouse slowly over text, it might read it character by character. Even when I was sighted and, had more sight than I have now, I never used my mouse that way. If I needed to find out my, bank account number, I might use my keyboard navigation to get to it. And then I would go through using my right and left arrows character by character and have it read something like that I need to know, each individual character, or in the case of an account number, each digit, each number. And I would go through, character by character so that I'm able to read it that way. But as far as, you can always slow, if it's reading too fast, you can always slow the speech rate down. And that can be done with a keyboard command. You can, slow it down and then put it back to wherever you would like it to be for to suit whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, as Susan, yes, Brad, you're right. And I do that quite often. I slow that speech down like maybe 32 or 30. And I'll do that. So when I'm having to listen to characters like phone number or credit card numbers or whatever, then yes, I'll sure slow that thing down. That does help. But I was just curious about the arrow from a mouse. I may be thinking about causing more trouble for my brain to try to learn something. But anyway, thank you, Brad. You were very helpful. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you, everybody.
All right, there's always lots of options to explore and always so many ways of doing things on the Mac. With that, are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, and you are?
Hi, Chanelle. My name is Hilton Schwartz. It's my, I think, second time coming to this group. I came about a year ago.
Okay,
I live in
great.
yeah. So, first of all, to the previous viewer with the mouse, viewer, user, my thought is if you could see enough to know where the mouse is, maybe you don't need voiceover. You should stay in like the non-voiceover system for people who have sight, magnify it to the max. And I'm sure there's a mouse echo in the Apple system, and that might be the better thing. Because once you get into voiceover, it's pretty well got to be like up and down arrow. I don't see how you could do it because I just don't understand how that works.
I don't
And
either, but I've
yeah,
never had to, so.
yeah, and maybe calling Apple Disability Support would maybe at least bring some clarification. Okay, here's my question. So I'm 75. I lost my vision about 5 years ago. Before that, I was a heavy Windows user. So my ideas and my maps, my visual maps that I still remember about how to use a computer are very heavy on Windows 7 and Windows 8. So, clicking on a window to maximize or minimize or close it, and clicking on something to get it going. That's what I'm thinking about. So when I lost my vision, and I started learning the MacBook, and I really only started learning it about a year ago because I stayed on the iPad. I ran into this very curious thing called interact with. So the VO shift up arrow to stop interacting and a VO shift down arrow to interact. And nobody's really been able to explain to me what that means in terms of like the map I still have in my head, or I have a computer background, what it means in terms of what's going on. And the people who are training me, God bless them, they've got patience. They've been blind all their life. And so they don't have that kind of a map in their head where they can say to me, well, this is what it would have looked like visually, and this is what you're doing. They're just saying, well, all the people we train just listen to voiceover. It says interact, interact. If it says stop interacting, stop interacting. The problem comes, there's many places, not many, but a few, too many, where it says you have to interact and you don't, or it doesn't say you have to interact, and you do. And I'll give you an exact example. So in the Mail app, in the Apple on the MacBook Air, there's 3 columns. The left column has the mailbox, the middle column has the messages, little abstract, and the right-hand column has the body of the message itself. Okay. If you open it up and get the inboxes going, go to the middle column and interact with that. So then you can go down and choose a message. Now, I'm sorry, if you want to go and choose a different mailbox, you don't have to stop interacting. You can just use the arrow keys to go past the vertical scroll bar and then get to the left-hand column, interact with that, go down to the mailbox you want via a space bar and it stop interacting, go back to the message column, the middle one, it's still working. You don't have to stop or start interacting with it. And sometimes it says to start interacting and stop interacting, and you don't have to. And on top of that, the person who trains me that sometimes in some apps, when you close or open a window, in its wisdom, Apple decides to throw in an automatic interact with. So it's done it for you. It hasn't told you. So, and the last thing is you would think like the start interacting, the stop interacting, like come in pairs, but they don't always seem to. Often you can start interacting something, but you don't have to stop interacting to get somewhere else. Help.
Okay, well, I think there's a couple things going on there, and it's interesting how I'm unfortunately one of those totally blind people who does not have those maps, so to speak.
Yeah.
But maybe I should be tuning the question over to others to see if they want to help, and then I can give my input. So,
Okay, sure.
who
Love
who
it.
wants to help Hilton here?
This is Brad.
Yeah, Brad.
Well, there's a number of things going on here, and I was listening to what Hilton was saying. There's there's more than one way to skin the proverbial cat going on here.
Totally.
Yes.
With regard to the Mail app, let's use that for example. You're talking about the different areas in the mail and whether to interact or not to interact, or whether it's required to interact or not required to interact. When you want, coming from a Windows environment, you kind of move around using the tab key, and you can do that with a Mac. I'm not even going to talk about that because that adds another level to it. But I usually will navigate using VoiceOver, hold down the VoiceOver modifier and use my left and right arrows, and I move from area to area. Once I get to, for example, that mailbox list, couple things here. I now have my focus on it, and I can arrow up and down, and I will go from mailbox to mailbox. But if I choose to interact with the mailbox list, I will find out that there are things there that I don't find when I don't interact with it. For example, at the top of in the current Big Sur / Monterey versions of the Mail app, I now have, it's laid out differently than it used to be before. At the top of it, I have my favorites. When I'm at the top of that list, if I do not interact, I'm not told there is a category title or label that says favorites. And then I move down through my inbox. And if I have more than one mail application, more than one mail account, it'll say all inboxes, but it's still inbox, sent items, drafts, all the various things that I might have. Then I can move down below and I will see that since I have created a smart mailbox, I next find a category called smart mailboxes. And there's a mailbox in there called unread that I created. Well, if I'm just arrowing up and down, I go from my favorites where there was unread up there because I've put it in the favorites. I get down below favorites. I now find unread again. Well, when I've interacted, I'm told that that unread is in a category called smart mailboxes. And in my case, I only have one, but I might have made more than one. So there's just that one in there. Then as I navigate down further, I get to my first mail account, which in my case is an ATT Yahoo mail account. And then it will list the inbox and all the other, mailboxes that are in that account, all the ones that I've created within that ATT Yahoo mail account. When I finally, and I can put my my voiceover focus on the title for that account, where it says my email address at swbell.net or whatever I've chosen to call that account in Apple. And I can do a VO spacebar and I can collapse it. And all those mailboxes within that account are now collapsed. And you can't do that without voice over navigation. So if for some reason that was collapsed and I'm navigating without interacting, I can't uncollapse it. And so on. Below that account, I might have my Outlook.com account. I might have my Gmail account. I might have whatever other accounts I have enabled in my mail thing. But you just have a lot more control over what's going on inside that mailbox list. Moving from the mailbox list to the what do we call it? The mailbox
message list.
The selected mailbox details. So there is a separator between the two. And if you've ever heard that, when you VO right or left, you'll hear when you go from the mailbox list to the mailbox, you'll hear say separate, vertical separator. And that's like a dividing line.
Mm-hmm.
And you can interact with that. And that's how you move that line to the left or the right. You can make the mailbox list, the list of mailboxes bigger or, wider. And that, which of course makes the mailbox detail list, the list of all the items in the mail, smaller. And that's the same thing that a mouse user might do by putting their mouse on it, clicking down and dragging left or right so that they can, move that divider, separator. Moving over into the mailbox list. Now, I don't have to interact with that list. I can just arrow up and down. And when it lands on an item, it'll tell me, if it's unread, it'll say who it's from. It'll say the subject. It'll say the date that it was received. It'll say what account. If it's my all mailboxes, all inbox list, it'll tell me which account that it's from and maybe the size of it or something, just a bunch of information. Now, if I want to, I can interact with the mailbox and then I can use my VO navigation, VO up and down arrow to go from item to item. And then as I land on an item, I can VO right or left arrow across that item and it will read me each column. Is it have an attachment? Who's it from? One at a time instead of just voiceover reading them all off as I arrow down to each item. If I choose to land on the subject field, and I've interacted, I can now just arrow up and down and it will only read me the subject for each mail item, not who it's from, because I have interacted and I'm only moving on that column. Same thing could be said for if I move over to the dates. Say, I just want to quickly run through mails that just came from today. Of course, as I go through this, it's only telling me the dates. It's not saying who it's from or the subject or anything like that. I'm just using this as an example. And I can move down through the items and see just how many, I don't know why I would do this, just how many emails I got that came in today or something like that. Be honest, I usually don't interact with my mailbox list. I arrow up and down through and I let it tell me who it's from, what's the subject, and that's really about all I'm paying attention to, but it reads the whole thing. When I get to an item, I then press the enter key and it will open it and it will automatically start reading the email. But my real point here is that you don't have to interact. You can interact and the information you get may be different than if you don't interact.
That is
So
a
that's my
beautiful
main point.
explanation. Thank you. I hope that helps you, Hilton.
It's a bit of a help. It tells me that when you interact with something, more details become available. So in a visual sense, I'm thinking perhaps it gets a little bit larger to make room for all those details. And maybe when you interact, it puts the cursor, the focus, in a certain place to get you started easily. So I understand that part because going back to my sighted days, if you would minimize a window, it would, shrink to a little part on your screen. You'd maximize something else, but then whatever you had maximized, you'd have to take the mouse and the cursor and click on something to get it going. So in the voiceover world, you're not really doing that. Once you interact with something, I think what happens is that the Apple system figures out where the cursor is and puts it there to sort of, do those two things in one. So, that's part of how I'm explaining to myself, and your explanation is good that if you don't, you just get less detail. If you do, you get more detail. Okay, that adds another layer, to it, for me. But I'm still trying to understand, if I had vision and I were using my Apple, when I interact with that column, any of those columns, let's say the middle one, the message column, what would happen? Would it get larger so to show the more details? And so if I don't interact when I go to the left column, the mailbox column, it just has less space?
This is Brad.
Go ahead, Brad.
No, it doesn't change its size at all.
Okay.
When I'm in the mailbox list and I interact with the list and then I VO up or down arrow, I'm just going from, each mail item is kind of a line. First of all, I have mine set to what's called column view. It's like a list view.
Yeah, me too. I love it.
I've turned off previews. I don't, that's the standard way. And I've also turned off that column you mentioned on the far right. The preview, I don't have it. I don't have a reader mode open. And when I did, I had it down below, but I turned that off completely. And actually I went down to where there's a horizontal separator between the preview window, and I arrowed down and collapsed it so that it's not even there. All I have is just my inbox and everything that's in it, or whatever mailbox it might be and whatever's in it. But when you choose to interact with your mailbox, your list of your mailbox contents, arrow up and down, I'm going from item to item, and when I get to an item, I can interact with that item, and then, like I said, I can use my right arrow if I'm at the far left and move across each of the, what do we want to call it? Details of that mail item. Does it have attachment? Is it unread? Who's it from? What's the subject? What's the date it was received? What's the anything else about it? What mailbox is it in? If I'm in my all mailbox, all inbox, I'm looking at items
so
regardless of.
Are there any places where you must interact? If you don't, it just won't work?
Yes.
Because as an example, in the left column, the one with the mailboxes, I haven't really, I've been told that I must interact with that column. Otherwise, I can't select, and because I have folders in my, let's say, my Outlook account, I can't select another folder. So in order to do that, when I arrow over to the leftmost column, I have to interact with it, go down to the folder I want to access, VO spacebar on it, stop interacting, and then VO right arrow over to the middle column, and then all the messages that are in that folder will show up. And if I don't do that, I can't select another folder.
This is Brad. No, that's not true. No. I can go to my mailbox list and I don't have to interact. I can arrow up or down through it and go from folder to folder, and then I don't have to hit enter or do anything, just merely the fact that I arrowed to it. I'll hear a voiceover say, inbox, sent items, drafts, whatever. It read me the name. Now, the only difference is if I do interact, remember I told you it would read me the category title. For example, it would tell me that I'm in my favorites. If I move down, it would tell me I'm in my list of smart mailboxes. As I move farther down, it
No,
would
no,
tell
I
me,
agree. I agree. It voices
okay,
where the cursor is. I'm agreeing with that
but
part.
well,
I'm
hang
just
on,
saying that. Yeah, yeah. Go
hang
ahead.
on, bear with me. I will get more information if I interact, but I don't need to interact. I can just arrow up and down and it will tell me the list of the box I've selected. Now, as I mentioned before, if I, for example, have my AT&T Yahoo mail account collapsed, I can't uncollapse it unless I interact. As a matter of fact, I won't even know it's there if I have it collapsed. So, if you're lost or something's not right, you might want to interact with it and then navigate, and you might find things that you're not otherwise finding. So, as far as another area that you really must interact with would be the toolbar at the top of the mailbox window. You navigate to that. You have to interact with it if you want to do anything with any of the items in the toolbar. Now, actually, I never interact with it because there's a keyboard command for everything in it. Or I can do whatever I need to do by going to the menu bar and maybe go to the view menu if I need to do something in there, which really, once I've got it set up, I really never need to do that. I've got it set to category list view and some other things like that. But in the beginning, setting up a new Mac or something like that, I did. But I digress. If I want to interact with that toolbar, if I want to do something with something in it, I have to interact with it. If I want to get to, there may be certain items in the toolbar that require me to interact with them in order to select the radio button or something in them. I would have to interact with that radio button group, select it, then I have to stop interacting with it to get out of it. I have to stop interacting with the toolbar if I want to get out of it. Now, there's an exception to everything. Remember, I said you could use the tab key. If I'm in the toolbar and I just hit the tab key, I believe it will move me out of the toolbar altogether. I rarely use the tab key, so I could be wrong there. It may tab and move me through each item in the toolbar. I can't remember. But
sometimes it does that. I just wanted to say that sometimes, so the way I picture the interacting and the way Brad's describing it too is, there are some things that you must interact with, but a voiceover user cannot take in the screen at a whole. So basically, so you're thinking of, okay, you're interacting, that's maximizing something, but you already see something. I think not interacting is basically a way of skimming. Whereas when you're interacting, you're needing to look at the details of an item. Sometimes, as Brad said, you don't need those details. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you need to know that they're there. Sometimes you don't, but it's just a way for us as voiceover users to streamline our experience of interacting, not interacting, so we don't have to hear every single item on the screen, because that would take much longer to hear than it would be for a sighted person to just skim real quick. So that's what came to mind as Brad was talking, and I could be totally off base. I hope this discussion has been helpful, Hilton, and we do probably need to move on. But
okay, thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here. And thanks, Brad. I hope I didn't cut you off.
No, you're fine. It was
Okay.
actually very good. The only thing I wanted to say was Hilton mentioned maximizing, and I believe that's a completely different, I guess the word would be concept or action altogether. I know in the Windows world, and you do it in Mac too, it kind of has to do with is your window full screen or not full screen, and that concept exists on a Mac too, but that really has nothing to do, as far as I know, with what we're talking about. Interacting. The concept of interacting does not exist in the Windows world.
No.
A
And it's
different,
totally
well,
away.
kind of.
It will kind of, yeah. But it's
If I'm,
just, I mean, what?
I was going to say, if I'm in a program like Microsoft Word and I press the Alt key, I move to the ribbon area. I guess that's like interacting with it, but that just moved my focus to it. So maybe that's the closest thing to interacting that we've got, but even that's a different deal.
Yeah, and even on the Mac, there's different navigation styles, so you can turn off the announcement of like there's I don't know how, there's just different the tab key can be used to automatically interact, which is I was never a big tab key person even in
No, me
Windows, but
either.
anyway, I know. We should get to other questions, but this has been a great discussion. So, who would like to ask our next question? And
This is Sonia.
yes, Sandhya.
Okay. Can you please explain the sidebar again?
All right. Who wants to explain the sidebar?
This is Herbie.
Go ahead, Herbie.
Simple explanation, it's something I generally don't use unless I need to find my phone once I have it plugged into the Mac. You really, I mean, it's kind of, it will have icons for, like, say, your different big folders like iCloud Drive, Dropbox, all that, but a lot like iCloud Drive, though, has a shortcuts key with, Command Shift I from you can get to from the Finder. You can do your Command Shift H for home and pretty much find anything you want from there, and it'll be a whole lot easier than trying to navigate the sidebar. So, that's my brief
And
explanation.
you're sounding all warbly, just so you know. And
You are too,
yeah,
actually, but
Yeah, you are
oh, it
too.
must be our connection.
This is Brad.
Brad, go ahead.
Yeah, what Herbie's saying is he's talking. I guess we're talking about the sidebar and a Finder window, and it's kind of like a navigation pane. It's a list of folders or locations on your computer, and the sidebar is a list of them and a way to get to them quickly. A lot of times, some of the things Herbie mentioned we can get to with keyboard commands, but to a mouse user who's not aware of keyboard commands, or it's a way for a mouse user to click on something in the sidebar very quickly. We were talking about the mail app just a minute ago, and the list of the mailbox list is like a sidebar on the side of the left-hand side of the mail application window. So there's all kinds of sidebars.
Definitely. Where are you experiencing, or which sidebar are you trying to deal with, Sandhya?
Yes, I've encountered it in a couple of places, and then it'll say, "Oh, it's mainly in the Finder," just like y'all were
Okay.
saying, and then I'm trying to think where else, but just and then I see hide sidebar. So anyway, do you guys typically hide it or keep it or what?
This is Brad. I leave
Go
it
ahead,
on.
Brad.
It doesn't affect anything. It's just
this is
there.
Herbie.
Yes, Herbie.
Yeah, I also leave it on too. Like I said, for instance, if you ever plug your phone into the Mac, like say if you want to transfer ringtones, you'll need the sidebar for that. I'm not aware of any shortcut
Yeah.
to get to it, so I definitely leave it on. I just use it. I don't use it much, but it's there if I need it for some reason. Like I said, the phone.
Right.
I think Judy asked me a question about that the other day too. Do I hide the sidebar and the toolbars? I mentioned, I used to be pretty anal about turning those things off if I didn't use them, but now I just don't. I find I'm demoing things or just whatever. I forget to turn them off or forget, and it's really not that big of a deal if you don't want to. If you don't want to go into them, just don't interact. Getting back to our conversation about interacting, and so yeah, it can be useful to have just in case, but it's not. you will probably not, at least we seem to not use it too much. So anyway, just whatever you find in the sidebar, that will show. So when you're, like Brad was talking about in mail, you have the mailboxes list, and so you go to one of those using up and down arrow or VO up and down. There's no need to press space or enter, whatever, and then you uninteract and you VO right. Well, actually, you don't even need to uninteract if you have it. And then VO right, and you're in your messages. If you're in Finder, let's say you find your iCloud Drive or whatever in the sidebar, you VO right, and that would show the folders in your or files in your iCloud Drive. So that's kind of how it works. And yeah, good question though. Anyone else with a question?
Well, this is Herbie.
Yes, Herbie.
Couple things I will mention real quick is you really may not even have to interact now with the mailbox list. You just VO left, you go down to the one you want, and then you VO right. You can also use the VOJ method, but the other thing I will mention too is you can also use first letter navigation in the mailbox list too to find which folder you're looking for if it has a distinct name or whatever. So.
Well, Brad pointed out earlier that interacting does allow us to know whether a mailbox is expanded, and so that would indicate whether we have mailboxes under that. If it's collapsed, we might not know that and not know to expand it. So anyway.
Right, but I think VoiceOver tells you generally if something is collapsed or expanded, but yeah.
All right, and I do hear some background noise, so is there anyone else wanting to ask a question? Oh. Did I hear Priscilla? Or who did I hear?
There's somebody on the phone that's unmuted.
Okay. All right, well, then does anyone have another question?
Hi, it's Hilton here. I have another question.
Sure.
So I don't want to hog the time here. So in text edit, when I create a new file, so do a command N, do some work, I then want to save it, so I do a command S. So it brings me to a place where it asks me for the name and then the tags and then the format. And then it asks me which folder I want to put it in. And there's a popover or a pop-up. It doesn't always list all the folders that I use. So I have about maybe 15 folders that I use. It only lists like 3 or 4. So can I get more folders in that list?
This is Herbie.
And if I could just finish. And if not, is there a workaround? So one workaround I found is that I do the save. I just let it put it wherever it is. And then in the menu bar, there's a file. You can then go to move. If you go to move and you VO spacebar in that, more folders will show up, more of the folders, but still not all of them. So, how do I make that more powerful? Okay, Herbie, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Herbie.
So there's 2 things you need to know with that text edit thing, and this applies to you'll see the same thing in mail as well. So you're going to have 2 different folder options, and sometimes the second one might be collapsed, so you'd have to expand it. The first one is going to show your root folders, like your iCloud Drive, your Dropboxes, your home folder, that type of thing. So you need to determine what root folder you were looking for, and then to the right, after you select that, then you need to VO right. You're going to go past the aforementioned sidebar, which you could also use to navigate. And so you want to make sure that so that's what you need to make sure you're seeing. And like I said, I think by default it may be a collapse. I think you have to expand it. So then you're going to go to your sidebar, and then you're going to see, first of all, there's going to be a couple of things you come across. One, it should ask you how you want things organized. I recommend column view because that's going to be the least frustrating way.
I'm on column view.
Okay, good. But then you're going to see a list of all your subfolders within that root folder. So like, if I want to save something in Dropbox, I may use that first thing you were talking about to find Dropbox. Then I'm going to VO right, and now I'm going to see all the folders that I have in Dropbox, and I can go from there.
So what would be the sequence? Let's say I've created a new file and I've hit Command S. So it asks me for the name, I do that. It asks me for the tags, I ignore that. It asks me for the format. I'm happy with RTF. Now I get to the popover button and it gives me folder, folder A, I really want folder M. So what would be the sequence to get to for that? It would include in the popover menu folder M.
So there is something to the right of that pop-up button called a triangle, and it might say a collapse.
It'll show more options or show less options.
And you'll want to and you'll want to press VO space, and then you'll actually be able to see what Herbie was talking about. I'm sorry, I kind of cut in, but
I don't remember hearing that.
You will if you VO right past when you select your first folder, you VO right. It'll say like disclosure triangle. It may say show more options since it's probably collapsed.
Yeah, show more options. That's what.
Yes, VO space on that, and then it's gonna show. Then you're gonna VO right again. You're gonna go see a sidebar, VO right again, and you're gonna eventually see another folder list of the subfolders within that main folder. So.
Okay, so let me just make sure I get the sequence right here. So when I get to the part that it says show more options, I do a VO spacebar on that.
Yep.
And then, so tell me again, so then it will give me a list.
Right, and you'll see the next list of folders within that main folder, and you just use it the same way you use the first popover.
So I go VO right, it will bring me to another list.
Yep.
And then I go
just
up
ignore
and down
the
that
sidebar.
list?
You'll see there. So you're gonna go past the sidebar, but don't do anything with that. Just keep going till you get to the next list.
Right.
And then you'll
so
see.
There'll be like two lists. Oh, go ahead, Brad.
I was gonna say it's like it brings up, it's like in Windows when you do a save as, and you'll get a little.
I wish they'd bring that back.
Well, that's what this is. It brings, and when you go to show more, it brings up a little like a finder window kind of thing.
Yeah.
And basically what Herbie's talking about is on the right is your list of folders or locations on your computer. Then there's a separator between the folder list on the the left side, and on the right hand is the contents of whatever location or folder you selected on the left-hand column. And some people like column view. I don't. I like list view. I find column view very confusing. But everybody likes something different. That's why they make 31 flavors of ice cream. But you can arrow up and down through there, and you can find a location, and that location may be another folder, in which case you can do a commando or a command down arrow and open
right
that,
arrow if you're in column view.
Or right arrow for column view. Yes.
Yep.
But anyway, that's all I wanted to say is what you've got there is a little finder window like thing.
And this is Herbie.
Yes, Herbie.
The other important thing I want to mention is it's going to remember that option next time. Like it's going to remember that next time, so you won't have to do the VO space on the show more the next time. It'll remember it from your previous time. So once you do that the first time, then you're going to be as good as gold.
This is Brad. Also to add, the next time you come back into the show more, it's pretty much going to be where you left it the last time. It kind of remembers what you did, and I'm not sure if that transfers. I think it does. If you close text edit and come back next week, I think when you open that show more, it's right where you left it the last time.
Okay, so what I'm remembering is VO spacebar to activate the show more, and then VO right arrow to come to different levels in the hierarchy, and then go up and down to select the folder that I want. And I guess I have to do a Command O on it, or just a VO spacebar.
Joe, since you're in column view, you're gonna VO right. Once you get to the since you're in column view, once you find the folder you want, if that's the folder you want to save to, you're gonna VO right to the save button, or you can actually just hit enter, and that should also work. And it'll save it. If you're wanting to go within that folder to find another folder, you hit right arrow and then down arrow to the folder you want, and then hit the save button.
This is Brad. Right arrow if you're in column view.
Yeah.
But if you're not, if you're in list view, you would have to open it using Command O.
Yes.
Enter does nothing.
Or command down arrow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
command down arrow.
Yeah, the right arrow almost sounds like the expand in the mail app where there's a thread.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same
Yes.
thing, same
Same thing.
concept.
Same thing. Same concept.
Okay, well, I just learned that. So,
Well, that's what we're here for.
I'm still getting my, no, I just learned the, work through a thread with the VO with the right arrow today, actually. So I'm just, learning the finger gymnastics around that.
Great. So one thing, if you do have access, I mean, Brad kind of mentioned in the beginning the AppleVis website, which has lots of awesome articles on using the voiceover with the Mac. Another thing that kind of goes over some of these things is I did a Mac class that's been posted to YouTube. If you search for the iBUG Today channel on YouTube, and you will find that previous class. And I go over these things in there, like how to save using TextEdit and how to get it, around the Finder and the Mail app and different things like that. So anyway, and just keep coming back. We'd love to have you, and these are great questions.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we have about 5 minutes. Is there anyone else with a question?
This is Sandhya.
Yes, Sandhya.
Just wanted to follow up. So we were having a discussion about the Google Sheets, the the program, and whether it's accessible on iPhone or Mac. And I don't know what I did earlier. I did not succeed on the Mac, but I did it. I tried it again. And I was able to, go through I was able to get to the right sheet, or, the right table that I wanted, spreadsheet that I wanted to be in. And I don't know, by some miracle, I was able to navigate and select the emails that I was talking about that were all in a certain column. So I just went through individually and did when I found it, I Command C and copied it. I think Brad had mentioned that earlier. So anyway, I was able to do it. So
were you using Chrome or Safari?
Safari.
Okay, well, that's even better than that, because I didn't have any success in Safari.
This is Brad.
Yeah, Brad.
When using any of the Google Sheets, docs or slides, and help me out here, Herbie, there is a command you need to give, and you give it only once to enable screen reader. What do we call it? That you're using
screen reader view.
Yeah, you tell it that you're using a screen reader. And when I say you do it once, I mean, if you're on a certain, and I don't know, I was told it's for once per account. So if I do it on a Mac, on Safari, my laptop MacBook Pro, and I give that command, if I then log into the same account on my Mac Mini using Safari, I don't think I have to do it again over there. But I'm unsure what happens if I'm on the same or a different Mac and I'm now using Chrome instead of Safari. Do I have to give that command? Or again, I was told that it's for that Google account.
Seems like I've had to do it every time.
You do it every time?
I do, but
it's supposed to stick. You do it once and what is the command? Is it Command Option X?
Z?
Z, thank you.
Yep.
This is Sandhya.
Yes, Sandhya.
So if I were to use Google Chrome, so I know y'all helped me load it last time, so I could open that and then try this whole thing again, and then it would be different. Is that right? Or
I think it works better. It works more like a typical, spreadsheet. I did not have success in Safari. Maybe you did, but in Chrome, I was just able to use my right and left arrows as if I was really, moving in a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I found it. This is Brad. I found it.
Go ahead.
Using VO navigation didn't work when I was in the Google Sheets spreadsheet. Just left, right, up, down, arrowing seemed to be all I needed to do, but fortunately, I wasn't really doing anything. I was reading. I was in a group, and they had sent out information for, hosting a certain convention, and there was all kinds of Zoom information in the spreadsheet. And I just had to read it. I didn't have to do anything with it. There was no formulas. There was no numbers. Everything was just text, thank God. But yeah, I found that no voiceover navigation. Once I got into the spreadsheet somehow, and then throughout the entire time I needed it, I just left that window open on my computer and never closed it until the need for it was over. But it was weird. I haven't used it that much. I know a lot of people love it. I found it very frustrating.
This is Sandhya.
Yes, Sandhya.
I just have one more follow-up on this theme of Google. I've never had very much luck scheduling events using Google Calendar. So by the same token, maybe if I use Google Chrome, I might have a better experience. Or do y'all use like setting up invitations and so forth? We set up a lot of things for iBUG, and I am never very successful. I'm better on the phone than I am on the Mac. So
This is Herbie.
Yes, Herbie.
I'm ashamed to admit this, but I actually do prefer the phone calendar over the Mac calendar.
Amen.
The Mac calendar is great for quick events. So if you know precisely what the date is you want, it's really great for typing in that information real speedily. And so it's doable, and I don't mind it so much for adding events, but for looking at events and whatever, I have to admit that the phone calendar is actually easier to use. So
this is Sandhya. So you're agreeing that to create the event, I mean, I find I can create them. I mean, I seem to be able to do it on the Google, on the Mac.
Yeah, that's fine, but looking at events is a little tricky. It does. They do come up in your notifications. That's not too bad. But if you really want to look at the calendar, I actually would say the phone is easier.
Brad, are you talking the iOS calendar, or are you talking Google Calendar?
Google Calendar. This is Sandhya Google Calendar.
Yeah, I don't use that, but I was going to say what I thought we were talking about the Mac or the iPhone iOS calendar, the stock and that I find it so much easier on the iPhone than on the Mac. I can look at them on the Mac, but it's just frustrating.
Don't know if it helps, but in either situation, you can still add to the Google Calendar. I don't know how to work. I've never had to create an event though where I have to send out invites, so I don't know how that would work. But I only use my Google Calendars. I create events on my iPhone, but that go into my Google Calendar, and that.
This is Brad. I was going to say, you can add your Google Calendar to your calendar app on either your Mac or your iOS device.
Yes.
Just by when you go into accounts, same way you set up your Gmail email. It's just when you set it up, there's some check boxes. What are you enabling? You enabling mail, calendar? No, you just check mail just like you check calendar just like you check mail and contacts, and then your Google Calendar will be available in your calendar app on your Mac or iPhone.
That is correct. And we are a couple minutes over. I'm so glad that everyone has been here and that we've been able to keep the conversation going. So yay. And Sandhya, definitely keep asking these questions. I don't know anything, and everybody, Hilton, so happy to have you, Helene. Nice to see you again, Marianne, just everybody. Thanks, and Priscilla, thanks for being here. And I can't remember when our next Tuesday event is. I want to say it's like January 20. Well, just stay tuned to the ibugtoday.org or our Mac and Talk email list. Definitely Facebook and Twitter. Hope you join us for the movie on Thursday night. And have a wonderful, happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. And just have a great time. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Chanelle.
Thank you. All right.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Bye.
Merry
Happy
Christmas,
holidays.
Happy New
Thank
Year,
you.
Happy Holidays, all that great stuff.
Good night.
Good night.